Hello and welcome to how to make upcycled and sustainable jewellery without any special tools needed at all. Now usually I would use my jewellery making tools like these round nose pliers and the flat nose pliers, but I'm trying to make this more accessible, so I'm using tools that everyone will have in their house. So how I would normally make a loop is I would cut the wire with my cutting tools and then take these pliers and do it like that, and then but instead I'm going to show you how to do it without needing these tools, and you'll need a paintbrush or something small in cylinder like a pen or something, anything that you might have in your house to wrap the wire around to make the little loop. And then you just this wire is very soft, so it's easy to bend, and then you would just place the wire through the hole of the loop and lift it up and then wrap it around tight enough so that it doesn't move, and you would just wrap that around as many times as needed to reach the base of the loop, all the way up like I'm doing here. Yep, until you get to the end, and then I would use my jewellery cutting tools like that, but instead I'm going to show you how easy it is to use scissors instead. So there, I've just cut that, and then you can see how the wire sticks up a little bit, so instead of using my flat nose pliers, I just take the scissors and very lightly cinch it a little bit, at which folds the wire into the middle so that it doesn't stick up, because then it could scratch you when you wear it or something, which wouldn't be very nice. So yeah, so instead I've done that, and now I'm making another one using the exact same technique as before, just to show you again how to do it. Make the loop again with the paintbrush, and then put the wire through the sea glass hole. Yep, exact same technique as before. It's quite simple once you get the hang of it, but it might be a little difficult at the start. Yeah, so just using the scissors again to close the wire shut, and then you can twist them a little bit more if they're a little bit loose, just to tighten them, but those are good. And now I'm going to show you how to make some with charms. Yeah, so I'm doing the exact same technique as before, where I'm using the paintbrush to make the loop of the wire, but this time, before you put the end of the wire through the hole, you're going to attach a charm through first. Oops, just dropped it, but yeah. So for this one I'm using a little shell charm, and I really like using sea-themed charms quite a lot, like starfish and little shells, because of the sea glass. I think it goes quite well. So you can see here that the wire is through the charm, and then again comes up around the back and is twisted around the wire up until the loop all the way, which will securely tighten it there. Yep, and then I would use the scissors again to cut off the excess wire again, instead of my special jewellery tools. So there we go, and then again there is a little bit sticking up, which you can see, so I would just use the scissors again, because it is quite difficult to bend that down with your fingers, and you don't want to hurt yourself because the end of the wire might be a little bit sharp, so just make sure to be careful. There we go, there's a close-up of it, and then that one's all done. Let's make another one. So this one has got a starfish charm on it, which the bigger charms I tend to use for bigger bits of sea glass. Like the other one was a little bit smaller, so that's why it's got a smaller charm on it, but this one is a slightly larger charm, so that would go on the slightly larger pieces of sea glass. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're picking what charm you'd like to go on what piece of sea glass. So yeah, doing the same thing where the wire goes through the charm and through the hole, and then wrapping it round again. Yeah, very easy and very fun to like customize and do whatever you want, whatever charms you want on, and whatever coloured sea glass you want or that you can find. Yeah, I find most of these on beaches, mostly up north, Lyme Regis, Siam, places like that. It's really fun to go and forage for it and collect them, you know. And here we are, I'm just putting some cords through them. I mostly use black cords for the sea glass, but you can use other colours, like brown does look quite nice. And you can also use other wire. I sometimes use gold wire, not as often because it is more expensive, but you can use gold wire if you're a gold person. I like both, but yeah. And now I'm going to show you how to do hand painted metal washer pendants, which are quite fun. A little bit more difficult, I'd say, and takes quite a bit longer, but they end up looking very pretty. So here I've just got some paints that I'll be using. Just normal acrylic paint. It's the easiest to use. You wouldn't want to use any other paints because it wouldn't work as well, especially on the metal. So I just dot that onto a palette, or you can just put it straight onto a piece of paper or something, just so long as you have something to put the paint on. So I'm dotting the different colours, the greens and blues, because that's the colour scheme that I'm going for here, but you can choose whatever colours you want, so long as you have the paint of those colours. You can do whatever you want, you know. Yeah, so dot that on there, and then I'm using a tool, but you can use literally anything. You could use a paintbrush to swirl it up, you could use a needle, something small to swirl it all up together. So after I've done that, I would then take my metal washers that I stole from my dad's shed because he wasn't using them, and I press those into the paint. Now you want to press it hard enough so that you get a full coverage. That bit didn't get all done, so had to go over again. Yeah, so you see it's got like a mishmash of blues and greens, and it looks quite pretty, and it gives it a sort of interesting texture as well, because when you lift it up, like, it gives a really nice texture. And it may get a little bit messy. I did get quite a bit of paint on my hands, but it is worth it because it looks really cool at the end. And then leave those to dry, which, because it's acrylic paint, it shouldn't take too long. And then I just use a clear glossy varnish, but you could use like clear glue or something, or even like nail polish if you have nothing else, a clear nail polish to varnish them. And then I'm using Posca pens here to colour in paint the other side because they're so much easier, and I like doing a plain back, but if you wanted to get creative, you could do the same technique on the first side that you want on the other side. If you wanted to do that, you know, that could look quite cool, but I do prefer just doing a plain block colour background. So for this I'm using two different coloured Posca pens, a blue and then a turquoisey green, which we'll see in a minute. So yeah, I'm doing that, and then here's the sort of teal turquoise colour that is quite pretty. So I'm just colouring those in. It's super easy to use, and they're paint pens, so they have quite nice coverage and they look quite cool, and they do dry quite quickly as well, so it's quite helpful. Like, if you don't have any of these, I do recommend getting some because they're great and they work on lots of surfaces, you know, paper, metal, whatever. So they're quite cool. Yeah. And now once those have been done, the ends, I'm now going over the edges, which is optional, but I do quite like how it looks. It gives them a nice finish, because they can look a little bit unfinished without this. It depends whether you have got paint on the sides or not, but for most of these you can see the metal, which I don't like. I don't think that looks good, so I decided to paint the edges, which was super quick and easy. Yeah, and then I've just put them face up so you can see the pretty patterns that the paint did, which looks really nice. Yep, and now I'm using the same Posca pens, and I'm drawing some little circles, little dots onto the painted washers, because they do look nice plain, but I think this just gives them a little bit of extra detail, which I think looks quite nice. So for about half of these I'm doing the dots on, and then the other half I'm going to be adding some wire wrapped around the edge, because I just think they look quite nice. Yeah, so some dots, and I'm doing them in sort of like getting smaller around the edge, and then the gap at the top is where we'll put the cord, so it looks quite cool. It's annoying though the dark blue Posca didn't show up super well, but not as well as the other colour, but it does still look nice. Now here's the wire, the same as the sea glass pendant wire that I'll be using, and so here it's a little bit difficult, but I'm wrapping the wire around the end. Yeah, so I'm doing that. I do it 3 or 4 times depending on how it looks or how big the washer pendant is. So there we go, I've wrapped that around 3 times, and I think it looks quite nice. And again, you can use gold wire for this as well if you are a gold girly, but you know, I only really have silver. I do have some gold, but it's not as nice, or it's not as thick. It's much thinner wire, which might not look as nice, but you know, you can experiment, do whatever. So here they are, all done. Now I'm just popping them on some cords, which I've used black and brown for these ones because I think both colours look quite nice. But it's, you know, personal preference really which colour you might prefer. So there we go. You just loop them through, and it's really simple and very easy. There, yeah, and I think they look really nice. They're very shiny as well, which I quite like. So there we go, all done. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope you enjoy making some stuff. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thank you.